I didn't find out my life was falling apart in a dramatic way. No phone call, no police knocking on my door, just a quiet notification on a random weekday morning, showing me a number that made my stomach drop. Because in that moment, staring at my phone, I realized something terrifying. Someone had been living my life behind my back, and I was about to find out that the person who betrayed me the most was the one I trusted first. If you've ever trusted someone just because they were family, if you've ever believed, they'd never do that to me, then listen carefully. Because this isn't just a story about money. It's about betrayal that starts at home. Earlier this week, I did something completely normal. I opened my banking app. No stress, no fear, just routine. Morning coffee in one hand, phone in the other, half awake, half thinking about work. And then I saw it, my credit score. And instantly, something felt wrong. Not, oh, that's strange wrong, but the kind of wrong where your body reacts before your brain does. The number was lower, much lower. I blinked, refreshed the app, closed it, opened it again. Same number. At first, I wasn't scared. I was confused, because I don't live recklessly. I don't miss payments. I don't gamble with money. I don't even use credit that much. I don't have maxed out credit cards. I don't have secret loans. I don't even have a credit card with this bank. So why did it look like I'd completely destroyed my financial life overnight? I told myself what everyone tells themselves. It's probably a glitch. Credit bureaus mess up all the time. It'll fix itself. But that uneasy feeling wouldn't leave, so I tapped deeper into the app, and that's when everything changed. That's when confusion turned into fear. 8. That was the first number that froze me. 8 separate lines of credit, all opened under my name, all recent. My heart started beating heavier, slower, like each beat was landing wrong. Then I saw the total balance. $76,000. I remember whispering out loud, "What?" Not yelling, not reacting, just disbelief. My hands started shaking. $35,000 of it was labeled installment debt. I stared at that phrase like it was written in another language. Installment debt, car loans, personal loans, something else. I didn't even fully understand what I was looking at, and that scared me more than the amount. Because you can't fight what you don't understand. My chest started to feel tight, like someone had wrapped a belt around my ribs and pulled. My mouth went dry. There was this faint ringing in my ears, the kind that only shows up when your body realizes danger before your mind does. I sat down on my bed, phone still in my hand, scrolling. Loan after loan. Different lenders. Different dates. None of them mine. None of them authorized. Every single one felt like a fingerprint I didn't recognize on a crime scene that was somehow my life. That's when a thought crept in. This wasn't a hacker. This wasn't some random scammer guessing numbers. Whoever did this knew me. They had my full legal name, my social security number, my date of birth, my address history. That kind of access doesn't come from the internet. It comes from inside your life. And once that truth settled in, my stomach dropped even further. Because suddenly, the list of suspects became very small. I didn't say his name out loud at first. I tried not to, but my mind kept circling back to the same place. Same address on the accounts, same email routing. Same pattern I'd seen before, my father. The man who handled most of the household finances. The man who always said he was just trying to keep things together. The man who knew everything about me. I felt sick, not angry yet. Just betrayed in a way I didn't even have words for. And then my brain did something cruel. It played old memories alongside the new reality. Him teaching me how to save money as a kid, lecturing me about responsibility. Telling me family looks out for each other. And now, he'd taken my identity and used it like a credit card. I sat there for hours, phone resting on my chest, ceiling fan spinning slowly above me, 8 accounts, $76,000, a future suddenly on pause, and one terrifying realization sinking in deeper by the second. If I was right about I didn't sleep that night, I don't mean I tossed and turned. I don't mean I kept waking up. I mean, I didn't sleep at all. Every time I closed my eyes, my brain replayed the same thought again and again. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm accusing the one person who's always been there for us? And then immediately after that, what if I'm not? I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. Every creak sounded louder, every passing minute heavier. Because the truth was, deep down, I already knew. The next morning, I started looking back at things I'd ignored for years. Little moments, small red flags, the kind you only recognize once it's too late. My dad had always been complicated. Growing up, he was the provider, the authority, the one who controlled the money. He paid the bills. He handled the loans. He decided what we could and couldn't afford. And whenever money was tight, he'd say the same thing. "I'll figure it out." At the time, that sounded reassuring. Now it sounded dangerous. I started remembering how often he'd ask to borrow money. Not just from me, from everyone. Friends, relatives, even my siblings when they were barely old enough to understand what money was. And it was always temporary. "I'll pay you back next month. Just need help right now." Family helps family. Sometimes he did pay it back. Sometimes he didn't. And when he didn't, there was always an excuse, something unexpected, something urgent, something that made you feel bad for even asking. That was his pattern. And suddenly, everything made sense. Later that day, I pulled my credit report, the full one, not just what the app showed me. I needed proof. I needed facts, because part of me was still hoping I was wrong. But the report didn't care about my feelings. It showed addresses I recognized, phone numbers I knew by heart, emails that weren't mine, but I knew exactly who they belonged to. Every account pointed back to the same place: home. My chest felt hollow, like something had been scooped out of me. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the screen while my coffee went cold in front of me. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't desperation. This was a choice. A series of choices. He had looked at my name, my identity, my future, and decided it was something he could spend. I wanted to scream. I wanted to confront him right then and there, but fear stopped me. Because confronting him meant something worse than a fight. It meant changing everything. My siblings still depended on him. They lived under his roof, relied on his money, trusted him completely. If I reported this, if I took legal action, what would happen to them? That thought crushed me. I felt trapped. Like I was standing between two burning buildings, and no matter which way I moved, someone I loved would get hurt. For the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to feel powerless. Not weak, powerless. I spent the next few days walking around like a ghost, going to work, answering emails, nodding when people talked to me. But inside, my mind was screaming. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. Every time I heard his voice, my stomach twisted. And he had no idea, or maybe he did. Because that's the thing about people who cross lines like this. They don't feel guilt the way you expect. They feel entitled. A few days later, he asked me for a favor, just casually, like nothing was wrong. "Hey," he said, "can you spot me some cash until next week?" I felt something snap inside me, not anger, clarity. I looked at him and all I could see was the truth. This wasn't someone who made a mistake. This was someone who believed they had the right to take. I didn't confront him, not yet. I just said no, and for the first time I saw a flash of irritation cross his face. Not disappointment, not hurt, annoyance, like a tool that suddenly stopped working. That moment scared me more than anything else, because it confirmed what I already knew. To him, I wasn't a person, I was a resource. That night I started researching. Identity theft, fraud, credit disputes. Every article said the same thing. If you don't report this, it becomes your responsibility. If I stayed silent, the debt would follow me for years. If I tried to handle it privately, there was no guarantee he wouldn't do it again. And that's when the guilt began to shift. Because why was I protecting him when he hadn't protected me at all? I thought about my future. Apartments I wouldn't qualify for, jobs that check credit, loans I'd never get approved for. All because someone else decided my name was theirs to use. I realized something painful. Keeping the peace was costing me my life. I didn't want revenge. I wanted my identity back. I wanted my name to mean something again. And for the first time, I allowed myself to think the unthinkable. What if the only way forward was to let him face consequences? The consequences didn't come all at once. They came slowly, quietly, like cracks spreading under paint. At first, it was small things, an email that never came back, a callback that never happened. I told myself I was imagining it. Until the first rejection landed. I had applied for an apartment. Nothing fancy, just a small place, something affordable. A step forward. 2 days later, I got the email. Unfortunately, after reviewing your application, we're unable to move forward at this time. No explanation, just a polite rejection. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest again, so I applied somewhere else, then somewhere else. Same result, over and over. Finally, one leasing agent was honest with me. She lowered her voice like she was telling me a secret. It's your credit. That word hit harder than I expected. Credit. Something invisible, something abstract. Yet it had the power to stop my life cold. I sat in my car after that call, staring at the steering wheel, hands gripping it tighter than necessary. This wasn't theoretical anymore. This wasn't just numbers on a screen. This was real. This was happening to me, and the worst part, he was still acting like nothing was wrong. Dinner conversations stayed normal. Family routines stayed the same. He laughed. He joked. He asked how my day was. Every time he spoke, it felt surreal, like watching someone smile at you while holding a knife behind their back. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him and demand answers, but fear kept me quiet. Because the moment I spoke up, everything would explode. And part of me was still trying to protect everyone else. My siblings depended on him. They didn't know. They couldn't imagine him doing something like this. And I didn't want to be the one who shattered that image. So I stayed silent. And that silence started to eat me alive. I stopped sleeping again, not from shock this time, from stress. From the constant pressure of knowing my life was being decided by someone else's choices. One night I snapped, not outwardly, inwardly. I was lying in bed, staring at the dark when the thought finally surfaced. Why am I the one suffering? Why am I carrying the weight of something I didn't do? Why am I protecting someone who didn't hesitate to sacrifice me? That's when I realized something painful. This wasn't just about money. It was about control. He had always needed control. Over finances, over decisions, over people. And now, even without trying, he still had it, because my fear was doing the work for him. A few days later, the pressure turned into manipulation. Subtle at first, comments about how hard things are right now, how family needs to stick together, how people who go to the authorities ruin lives. Each sentence felt targeted, like he was testing boundaries. Seeing how much I knew, seeing how far he could push. One evening, he sat across from me and sighed dramatically. "You know," he said, "if anything ever happened to me, the family would fall apart." That's when I knew he knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. And he was counting on my guilt. That night, I had my breaking point. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and slid down against it. My hands were shaking. My breathing was uneven. I pressed my forehead against the cool tile and finally let myself feel it. The anger, the grief, the betrayal. I wasn't just losing my credit, I was losing my trust. My sense of safety, my idea of family, and something else too. My future. In that moment, I made a decision. Not a loud one, not a dramatic one, just a quiet, terrifying decision. I was done protecting him. The next morning, I opened my laptop. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't ask for permission. I started researching exactly what I needed to do. Police reports, identity theft affidavits, credit bureau disputes. Every step felt heavier than the last, because each one made it more real. There was no undo button here, but there was also something else. Relief. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was moving forward instead of standing still. I printed the forms, saved the documents, organized the evidence. Addresses, emails, account numbers, everything pointed back to him. There was no denying it anymore. I sat there, staring at the stack of papers, my name printed over and over again. My identity, my life. And I realized something that changed everything. Reporting this wasn't revenge, it was self-defense. The woman on the other end of the phone spoke calmly. Too calmly. Like this was just another case. Another file. Another number. But for me, every word she said felt like a door closing behind me. She explained the process. How to file the police report. How to document identity theft. How the investigation would move forward. She asked me if I knew who was responsible. There was a pause, a long one, And then I said it. My father. Saying it out loud made it real in a way nothing else had. There was no gasp, no shock, just another calm response. That happens more often than people think. That sentence stayed with me because suddenly I wasn't alone. I wasn't crazy. This wasn't unheard of. After the call, I sat there staring at my phone. My hands were steady now. My heart wasn't racing. Something had shifted. The fear was still there, but it wasn't in control anymore. The next few days moved fast. I filed the report, signed the affidavits, disputed every fraudulent account. Each signature felt like cutting a thread that tied me to him. Painful, necessary. Then came the lawyer. I didn't know what to expect. I walked into the office feeling small, like I was about to be told I'd made a terrible mistake. But instead, the lawyer looked at the documents, then looked at me, and said something I wasn't prepared for. "You did the right thing." Those words hit harder than I expected, because up until that moment, part of me still felt guilty, like I was betraying him. Hearing someone say this wasn't my fault, loosened something in my chest. He explained the reality. This was fraud, identity theft, a crime, and if I hadn't reported it, the debt would legally become mine. He also said something else. If he did this once, he'd probably do it again. That confirmed everything I already knew. The investigation didn't take long. Paper trails don't lie, addresses, IP logs, emails, everything led back to him. And then came the moment I had been dreading. He found out. I wasn't there when it happened, but I heard about it later. The shock, the anger, the outrage, not because he'd been caught, but because I'd reported it. When he finally confronted me, it wasn't how I imagined. There was no apology. No tears, no remorse. He stood there, arms crossed, jaw tight. "How could you do this to me?" he said. That was it. Not "I'm sorry." Not "I messed up." Just blame. I felt something inside me finally break free. I looked at him and realized this was never about family. It was about entitlement. He believed he had the right to take from me, and he believed I'd stay silent. "You ruined everything," he said. And for the first time, I didn't flinch. "No," I said quietly. "You did." The house felt different after that. He avoided me. Family conversations stopped when I entered the room. The tension was thick, like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. My siblings were confused, upset. They didn't know who to believe. I didn't try to convince them. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. Because the truth was already moving on its own. The accounts were frozen. The debts flagged as fraud. My credit score began to slowly recover. And his control, it slipped through his fingers. Then came the legal consequences. I wasn't there for every detail, but I didn't need to be. The system took over. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one carrying his mess. Still, part of me felt heavy, not regret, grief. Because no matter how justified it was, losing your father like that still hurts. But I reminded myself of something important. I didn't destroy my family. I exposed the truth, and those are not the same thing. As the days passed, something unexpected. The months after everything happened were quiet. Not peaceful at first, just quiet. The kind of silence that comes after a storm when everything is still standing, but feels different. The legal process moved forward without me needing to push. Letters arrived. Emails followed. Updates I barely read. Because at that point I didn't need details. I needed distance. The fraudulent accounts were officially removed. One by one, each notification felt like a weight lifting off my chest. My credit score started to rise again. Slowly, steadily, like proof that my name was finally becoming mine again. I checked it obsessively at first. Not out of anxiety, out of disbelief. I had spent so long carrying something that wasn't mine that seeing it disappear felt unreal. A few weeks later, I applied for another apartment. Same documents, same process. Different outcome. "You're approved." I sat there staring at the screen for a long time, not smiling, not celebrating, just breathing. When I got the keys, I held them in my hand and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. Not just from debt, from fear, from control, from the constant feeling of walking on eggshells. Moving out was emotional, not dramatic, just heavy. I packed quietly. Didn't make speeches, didn't explain myself. Some goodbyes don't need words. My siblings were distant at first, confused, hurt, but time has a way of clarifying things. Truth doesn't need defending forever. It just needs patience. I don't know what the future holds for my relationship with my father. And honestly, that's okay. Because the hardest lesson I learned through all of this was also the most important. Being related to someone does not give them ownership over your life. Love does not excuse abuse, and silence does not equal loyalty. For a long time, I thought protecting my family meant sacrificing myself. I was wrong. Real protection starts with boundaries, with accountability, with choosing yourself when no one else will. I don't feel revenge. I feel relief. I feel grounded. I feel like I finally stepped into adulthood in the most painful way possible. And if there's one thing I hope people take from my story, it's this. If someone is willing to destroy your future to save themselves, they were never protecting you in the first place. Standing up for yourself doesn't make you heartless. It makes you free. And sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's just finally being able to sleep at night. If this story moved you, if it made you angry or sad or relieved, take a second to like the video. Subscribe for more real stories where people finally... If this story hit you in the chest, if it made you angry, sad, or strangely relieved, take a second to hit the like button. It helps more than you think. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories where people finally choose themselves. Even when it's painful. Even when it's family. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? Because some betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the people we trust the most. And sometimes, the strongest revenge is